Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to learn about building vocabulary. Now, what is the importance of building vocabulary? Well, there are many benefits. There's a proverb that kill two birds with one stone. I would say with vocabulary, you can kill many birds with one stone. If you have command on vocabulary, number one, it will help you in all types of IELTS exam, whether it's reading, listening, writing, or speaking, right? Second, it can help you comprehend the reading paragraphs better. You can answer more effectively. In a similar fashion, when you're listening, you can understand the conversation better, which will help you choose the right answers, okay? When you're writing, if you use those subject-specific vocabulary, and note that I'm saying subject-specific vocabulary because many people try to force some word they have learned into their writing or speaking, and then it turns out that they end up breaking the impression rather than making the impression. They end up getting low score on grammar because they use the word that doesn't fit. And many IELTS examiners often say that they observe, especially the inexperienced students, to force their newly learned word into a paragraph or a statement that does not do justice to the context where it's being used. All right, so I hope you get the idea. Let's begin. The first thing is we need to, when we are learning or when we are building a vocabulary, we should focus on building subject-specific vocabulary. The idea is not to learn very hi-fi words and then, thinking that is going to impress the examiner. What's going to impress the examiner is if you use the word appropriately, and that can only happen if you practice that word enough so that it becomes part of yourself. Many people say that you need to look at a word at least 25 times before it can become part of your vocabulary, right? And of course, by just not looking at them, but practicing it with different statements. So we'll come to that in a moment. So let's focus on the subject-specific vocabulary. Well, when you're preparing yourself, so when you are learning and increasing your vocabulary, then at that point, try to tailor your learnings to the subjects. The four most common subjects that are being asked in the IELTS examination is education, technology, health, and environment. Of course, there are more, but these are the most commonly asked. Wouldn't it be wise then to ensure that we learn at least a few words for each of these subjects? Ones related to education, for example, for educations, the words can be literacy, learning, teacher, professor, right? So one of the problems that happen when speaking or writing is that we don't have enough synonyms for a specific word. So when we know that we are going to most probably get questions from some of these topics, then might as well prepare that in advance. For example, for teacher, we can say professor or tutor, right? Sometimes, depending on the context, we could possibly use lecturer or educator or instructor, right? Similarly, you can have for health, you can have fitness, well-being, strength, vigor. You can have active lifestyle, healthy lifestyle. It is always recommended that when you learn words, you learn at least a few collocations as well, okay? Because most of the time, when you use those words, you lose onto the scores because you have not used the right collocations. I'm pretty sure that I'm speaking to a knowledgeable audience who know what collocation is. Collocation is basically words that go well together, okay? So like, for example, healthy lifestyle, mental health, balanced diet, or you could say sedentary lifestyle, right? So when you learn words in collocations, there are very little chance of you making a mistake, right? For example, with success, you can say make a success, right? In fact, there is a book that I'll recommend you for collocations. So this is the book, English Collocations in Use. This is an amazing book when it comes to subject-specific collocations, okay? So you're going to find each chapter for different areas in life, for example, work or education or health, etc. So this is an amazing book. I highly recommend that you buy it and you start practicing, right? Then for vocabulary, this book is really, really good. It's English Vocabulary in Use Advanced. And I'd say that if you practice with this book, this will give you enough knowledge to ensure that you score well in the exam, because it has a wide range of vocabulary, right? And with that word, I recall that on the IELTS descriptors, it says, has the student used wide range of vocabulary? It doesn't say that hi-fi or high-end vocabulary. Of course, it does say uncommon word, but many students fall for a trap that they think uncommon words means to be somewhere out of the blue, right? So when you're learning a new word, the number one thing that you need to check, that word is in trend or not. For example, if I learn a word apprise, okay? So you see, apprise means in form of tell. Now I might be under the impression that, okay, I'm using a very good word, something uncommon, so I should be getting a high score. But what we don't check is, if you click on this one, scroll down, you'll notice that this usage has been dropped, correct? Right? So make sure that when you are learning a new word, it is something that is in trend, okay? If you feel that the trend has been reduced, if that word was popular in 1880s, we may not want to use that in our exam, right? Okay, cool. So what do we do? So the first activity I'll recommend would be to create subject-specific vocab flashcards, right? You can create a card, for example, there's a word called delineate, which means to describe something precisely. On the front part of the card, you write the word and the way to pronounce it, because most of the time we learn a word but we don't know how to pronounce it, and that's not good, okay? And at the back of the card, you can write at least 1 or 2 sentences on how it is used. You can write information like whether it's a noun or a verb, you can write its meaning, etc. One of the cards that can help you create those flashcards will be this one. So I found this really helpful. So you get a bundle and then you can use this card. So this card is, I believe it's unbreakable. I'm not 100% sure, but this is really, really good. The quality is good. It's flashy. So you can check out, and you can buy something similar and you can write flashcards for vocabulary using a marker. So maybe use a red marker on the top to write the word and to describe the word, how to pronounce it, or to write the sentence for that word. You can use a black thin marker. Okay, maybe the red marker can be a thicker one. All right. After that, so you can write at least 3 flashcards every day. You can make a habit of at least writing 3 of them. Not too much, not too less. I feel that 3 cards should be good enough. So you adding at least 3 words to your vocab every day. Okay. And then revise at least once a day. What I would do personally is I would revise it the moment I wake up, because when the moment I wake up, my mind is really fresh. And the first thing in the morning, and any activity that you do in the morning is always refreshing. It's always good because your mind is fresh. You've got the proper rest. So that is a good time to remember. You can also do it the second time in the evening, but it's completely up to you how you plan your day. When you have that as cards, you can also shuffle and mix. Maybe you can give those cards, some of those cards, to your loved ones, maybe your sister, brother, or friends, and ask them to ask you some of those words. Maybe show the words to you, and then you can give the answer to what that word means and maybe a sentence with that. Then try to practice recalling word to meaning and meaning to word. What does that mean? This means that maybe on the first day, what you do is you look at the flashcard, look at the word, and then recall what it means and say a statement with that. The second day, or every alternate day, you don't look at the word, you just look at the meaning. Okay, so turn the flashcards towards the back and then just read the meaning of it and then try to recall what was that word. By doing so, you will be effectively making that word part of your vocabulary. And because you're doing it every day, then those words will become part of your vocabulary. And you will also feel motivated by looking at those number of flashcards. Okay, now these words are part of my vocabulary, which is great. Then there are some other things you can do with those flashcards. You can play some games. And you'll say to me, Imran, how can I play some games with flashcards? Is that even possible? Well, they are cards, right? You can do many things. You can come up with your innovative ideas and you can write down in comments as to what you came up with and maybe share it with others. But one thing I would suggest to you is that maybe give those cards to one of your loved ones and just pick a random 4 cards. Either you pick or ask them to pick it for you. And then using those 4 cards, try to create a story. Okay. Now, it will be interesting what you come up with, and it's going to help you in 2 areas. First, it'll help you remember those words better. And second, it'll help you in your speaking exam as well. Why? Because speaking exam is all about spontaneity, right? You need to be spontaneous to answer the questions. Apart from the 2 minutes part of the question where you're given 1 minute and you're supposed to write down few points, most of the other questions need to be answered spontaneously, right? So you won't really get much time to think. You have to create your own stories. You may not have heard of those subjects or topics they're asking or the questions they're asking. You might not have been asked those questions in the past, but you have to come up with things on your own. So by doing so, you're building a skill that'll help you become spontaneous in answering people. Okay. So when you take those 4 cards, think only for like 3 or 4 seconds. Don't take more than that. Okay. Because if you're not doing that, then you're not being spontaneous. Okay. And just start. Maybe the first day you will feel shattered. You probably won't be able to make a story. And it's okay. Try it the second day. Okay. Maybe in the initial few days, if you want to take some time, but the idea is to get better each day. Okay. So by doing so, you are helping yourself do better in speaking as well as in improving your vocabulary. And as we discussed, that vocabulary is something that's going to help you in all parts of the exams. Okay. So pick 4 cards, make a story. Then the next thing you can do is writing a sentence with the word. So pick 3 words for the week. So you'll say to me, Imran, can I not pick a different word every day? Well, I will say to you that you can, but if you pick up a different word every day, you're not practicing it enough so that it becomes part of your vocabulary. And if you pick up those 3 words and you make a sentence out of each one of them every single day for the rest of the week, you're actually making around 7 sentences for each word, right? So you're writing different types of sentences. And then when you write those sentences, you can check it on Grammarly to make sure that the sentence that you have constructed is appropriate, it's grammatically correct. And by doing so, you would have used that word so much, I think 7 times is good enough. You would have used that word just enough so that you can then confidently use that word in your IELTS examination. Okay. Then in the next week, change it to another 3 words and so on.